got all our presentations loaded up?
I have two presentations. Yes.
Okay, got the one we drove these.
I have the code innovation database one, and then I have one for solar, like basically like everything else.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, my presentation for the rooftop one.
Okay, great.
I think there's too much traffic on the Wi-Fi. That's streaming perfectly. Streaming now. Flight over to Yep.
Do you actually trigger it or
It is broadcasting right now. We've been broadcasting for the last 2 minutes and 37 seconds. I also improved that I made multiple tests. You actually probably want to stand back a little bit and do the Wi-Fi. Okay. So I did multiple tests, and I made sure that we have copies saving on the computer. I made sure that it's saving here. So I did multiple tests to make sure what happened last time doesn't happen. So all the tests look good. So we should be okay. have too many people on the Wi-Fi. Everything is exactly as it just set up a few moments ago. Let's take the laptops off. Because it shows that we have lost our internet connection. Still recording, but we don't have an internet connection now. And the speed is stalling back up. You can watch that video on the live stream app.
Welcome, everyone. Please find a seat. We're going to get started. Thanks for your attendance for this session. I think you'll find it a very exciting session. It's something that we've talked a lot about solar, but not about the people that have no access to solar. So I think it'll be a really interesting topic. I also want to welcome the folks over at 21 Acres. They're at the other end of the simulcast, and Solar Woodinville has been very active in the area in helping people understand how to capture their own solar energy, but also people that don't have access, and that's going to be the topic tonight. There's a lot of people, in fact, the majority of people that want access actually don't have access. Couple of announcements. Chris wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the database. Do you want to give us a quick update?
Great. All right, is everybody paying attention? I'm here to say it's pretty exciting what's happening with the Guild right now. Not only do we have an awesome green home tour and the best green building slam last fall that's ever been, and powerful, awesome Seattle chapter and other projects going on, but the project that I work on is the Code Innovation Database. And after a first ever successful crowdfunding effort last December, we raised $25,000 for the Code Innovation Database. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Will you get to the first slide on my thing there? Yeah, so anyway, we raised $25,000 through a crowdfunding campaign last fall, and then just yesterday we got word that we won a $60,000 grant from the Edwards Mother Earth Foundation. Very exciting, very exciting. Yes, we're on a roll, and but we can't rest on our laurels. We've got a lot of work to be done if we aim to transform the built environment for long-term sustainability, which is in fact our mission. And so I'm going to look at my slides. Okay, so in order to ensure that we can ramp this database up to a national resource of inestimable value, we aren't going to rest on our laurels. We have a new fundraising campaign that I'm here to tell you about. So if you go to the second slide, yes, I want to talk just for those who don't know what the Code Innovation Database is. This camera isn't really pointing at me, is it? Is that better? No. I want the Woodinville people to see me. All right, I'll stand back here. How's that? All right, so anyway, the Code Innovation Database is an online resource that we created through the Eco Building Guild that documents successfully permitted green building, high performance, and other sustainable construction innovations that don't necessarily fit the normal prescriptive path to compliance, but somebody somewhere championed that innovation and got it pushed through. And because of that, we can document it and other people can use it as a precedent. So the goal of the database is to document these permitting precedents and put them in the hands of every building code official in the Pacific Northwest and builders nationwide. Is that what it says back there?
Sounds good.
More or less. Yeah, so it's filled up with case studies and other information. If you go to the next slide, that'd be great. What does that say? Oh yeah, so this is what I was just saying. We're trying to get this database project to be our signature policy initiative that will put the Guild on the map and help us take it to a national scale of a resource. And so for that, we had to raise a lot of money. We came up with a 3-year expansion plan and raised $25,000 in the fall, like I said, and just got this big grant. The next step is to try to raise money for the next 20 case studies we want to put into the database the second half of this year. So we just yesterday launched the Underwrite a Gem campaign, which is underwriting one of the case studies. And so we are trying to get 20 of them done. Let's go on to the next slide. I can't quite, yeah, it's hard to see the slides. So yeah, so our campaign, this fundraiser, is part crowdfunding, like we did in the fall, like last winter, but it's also part sponsorship effort. So we can use lots of little donations from folks like you, or we're also looking for businesses like manufacturers, architects, builders, larger companies that want to help us make this thing happen. And some of them actually have proven innovations that they would like to see documented in the database. Others just want to see this happen. And so we're looking to our members really as peer fundraisers here. It's not just me going to go out and ask all these folks to get on board and be in on the ground floor of the most exciting new resource in history. We're going to get all of you to go forward with that message if you're willing to go onto our website, which is the Network for Good website that's posted behind me. And it takes about 3 to 5 minutes to set yourself up with your own landing page. And from that, we all get to have a lot of fun together by just spreading the word through social media, talking to our friends, our families, and our business associates to get people excited about investing in this resource. The reason I'm excited about this, not just for the database project, but also because of what we did in December with that crowdfunding campaign and this campaign, I think we're really showing that the Guild can write our own ticket. We can fund our own initiatives, and that's just going to attract other people to want to give money to us as well. So I think this is the start of a new kind of powerful strategy for the Guild to be more self-sufficient and really leverage our community resources to make things happen. So with that, I just want to share a few examples of the kinds of gems of innovation that we're talking about, and that we have about 30 of them that you can choose from to underwrite. But yes, there's a bunch of them. So go to the next page. I kind of already got ahead of myself on this slide. If you go to the next slide. Oh yeah, are we there? Oh, too far. Okay, so the first one, just a few quick examples. One of our friends, Dan Welch with Bundle Design Studio, built a net zero energy, net zero home, almost living building challenge project in Bellingham. And we've already got one case study in there, but they are completely off the grid with water system, and we want to document how they did that. The next one is right here in Seattle, and we have the architect and designer here in the room, the badass C-Box, Sage and Mike. So we're working on a case study right now, but we could use some help in funding the work that is involved with that, and just documenting this really kick-ass project that is one of the first permitted DADUs with a shipping container in Seattle. Next one we've got, this is like a pageant. It's like a, I wish we had a catwalk. We could walk these things down because they're so beautiful. I just learned about this one recently, and it relates to some of the work that's happening in here in Seattle with Nicholsville and tiny home villages. But down in Eugene, they have Opportunity Village that grew out of the Occupy movement, a homeless tent encampment, which now has 30 tiny little homes that they built themselves. For the whole village was built for under $100,000. That's half the cost of one affordable housing unit at normal rates. And they got 57 people housed in their first year. They got it through the building codes and the city of Eugene through some really great partnerships and flexibility that the city was willing to offer. Great thing to document and share so we can repeat it in many places. Finally, green infrastructure at the Bullitt Center. Colleen Mitchell, one of our longtime members and allies, is helping me work on the next round of case studies for the Bullitt Center's project. So that's pretty awesome, and I just hope we all consider making a donation, or even better, becoming a peer fundraiser and helping find some businesses that want to support this effort. Thanks. I'll turn it over to the panel.
Next we have Doug with a couple of announcements. Doug?
You know, I don't know how I get to do some of these things. Some of them are a lot of fun, and this happens to be one of them. And, you know, we just heard of some good things happening for the Guild, to the Guild, due to the hard work, energy, and effort that our Guild members have put in over the years to lay the foundation. We have one other piece of good news to share tonight, and if everybody would, please mark down June 4th on your calendar. And what time on June 4th? We don't know, but 3 of our Guild members, and for those that have been members of the Guild for a while, you know, it's almost a family affair. And when good things happen to one of us, it reflects on the Guild and reflects on the others. Well, Kim Mulligan, Kate O'Dall, and Lucas Johnson did a little documentary here a while ago that is going to be shown on the TLC network. And I actually happened to hear about the pieces on how this was put together. And it's going to be a pretty exciting project. It's called My First Home. And so the interviews and what they did, if we have a chance, put the word out on our Facebook and our network. And this is going to be a lot of fun. So with that, that's some other good news for the Guild today. And then one last thing, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, actually 2 things. Before our session at 5:30, feel free to attend the Passive House session, which is upstairs in this building. The 2 groups relate very nicely, and it ties together. And then the one last thing, for those of you that have looked at next month's calendar, I'm sure on it you saw that this session is going to be outside in, inside out. And if I can throw out and suggest, please come to that one. It's going to be different than anything you've ever experienced at an education session before. And it should be quite a fun experience. So, thanks.
Kate O'Donnell has something to say about the green pages.
I do. Yeah, come on. Thank you. I did want to remind you all that the Green Pages, the formal publication of the Seattle chapter, is going to be printed again, coming out in October. So now is your time. We only produce this every 2 years. And as everybody was saying, the Seattle chapter and the Guild are doing great things, and people are going to be looking to our organization even more than they have in the past for leadership and sustainable solutions. So if you have a sustainable service or product, or if you just want to be listed or advertised in the green pages, come and see me. I'm going to pass this around. You can write in, Tom, I know he already said he wants to do an ad. Just write in your name and phone number, best way for me to get in touch with you, and we'll make sure that we put a custom ad package together for you so you can get into the green pages. All right? Thanks, you guys.
Thanks. Okay, keep the donations coming in. We've got some really good volunteers that have helped out with the planning sessions. Doug, did you want to? Did you have any more? Okay, very good, very good. I want to point out our sponsors tonight. We have hold on one second. We have Umpqua Bank here. Umpqua Bank with Tim Corrigan. Umpqua Bank is a proud sponsor of the Northwest Eco Building Guild and supports our communities by financing the installation of renewable energy systems such as solar and energy efficiency improvements for the homes and commercial properties through our Green Street Lending Program. If you have any kind of financing need or would just like to stop by to say hi, see what we are all about, please come and grab a card at Tim's table there in the back. We also have PSCCU, Shannon Ellis. Brock is here. PSCCU is the Washington Green Credit Union. You're not just banking when you belong to PSCCU, you're experiencing what it's like to have a friend that doesn't just care about your money, but also cares about creating a socially responsible, financial cooperative where our actions benefit our members, communities, and economy, and the environment. We also have Keith Hughes from West Seattle Natural Energy. West Seattle Natural Energy, Keith Hughes is the owner of West Seattle Natural Energy and has been in the business of designing and installing solar PV arrays throughout Western Washington since 2008. Keith comes from a construction background and is a licensed general contractor as well as a licensed electrical contractor. He has a family-owned business operated business and is a veteran-owned small business and member of the IBEW Local 46. So without further ado, John, let's get our session moving.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Thanks for everyone coming. Tonight's meeting is on solar for those who don't have solar roofs. In tonight's meeting, we welcome questions as we go along. So if you have questions or if we've missed a point, there's some people with some great expertise out there, please add it on. And for those of you who are watching out there in simulcast, my understanding is there's a way you can ask questions too, and we welcome your questions or your ideas and input as we go along. So the idea for this meeting for me started with my own looking for solar for my own house. I live in North Ballard and I got trees around a certain portion of it. And I got a friend in Ellensburg who's got a roof with a perfect solar exposure out in a field. And so the question is, does it really make sense? Is it most cost effective? Is it the best thing for the environment for me to invest my money into a solar roof that's partially shaded in Western Washington compared to Eastern Washington? And then the question is, if I'm doing it in Ellensburg on my friend's roof, how the heck do I benefit for it? What's the mechanism for that? Or what's the way for people in general to benefit for that? So the idea for tonight's meeting is talking about three different things about solar for those who don't have a solar roof. One is what's been done before, which is mostly community power, and we'll hit on a few other little things that are out there as well. What people can do right now, which is a few things, not so much, and some things will be coming up hopefully. And then how do we scale up the opportunities in our state? How do we really scale up community solar in a big way? What's the vision that we're looking at? What are other things that are being done in other areas that we could really make community solar go in a good way? And this works by
Just one click.
click. Cool. All right. So this is, most of you know all about solar already, plenty about it, but this slide is just showing you the graph that solar panels have greatly reduced in price from 2005 to 2015. The stats that I saw, price of solar panels has gone down installed by 70%. And the amount that's been installed has gone from 79 megawatts to 7,000 megawatts from 2005 to 2015. So the situation with solar panels has just changed radically in the last decade or so. And it appears that solar panels are going to continue to get less expensive and more efficient as we go along. Oops, that is not my slide. I could click again.
I think that's the next one. You mentioned it, I minimized it.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. A few little technical challenges along the way. So this slide, how do I point to it? Or I don't.
We don't have a pointer for it.
Okay. Aha. I got a pointer.
There you go.
So this slide is showing you that in our country so far, we have actually at this point over 1 million solar installations. And I don't know if that's residential and commercial, maybe you know that, Cheryl?
Probably mostly residential.
Okay.
As far as numbers. Yeah.
Okay, as far as numbers. But when it goes beyond that, there's just a huge number of people who haven't done solar installations right now and don't have available. There's this quote that really caught my attention when I was doing this research, that there's this organization called the Clean Energy Collective, which is the largest facilitator of community solar in the country. At least that's what they say. They say that the number of people who have solar roofs, who own a house or a building and have good solar exposure, are outnumbered by the people in this country who don't own a home or don't have a good solar exposure by a 7-to-1 ratio. So the importance of this meeting, there's other figures around. I've also seen a 2-to-1 ratio, and there's different ways of putting it. The importance of the meeting in my mind is if we're really going to scale up solar in a big way in this country and in our region, we've got to do a lot for providing solar for people who can't do it on their own roofs or in a more cost-effective method. You switch. Cool. Very nice. So this is another way of looking at it. This is a graph from a study from Rocky Mountain Institute, Amory Levin's group, and it shows low-income and moderate-income people who could be involved in community solar. This is people who are other renters who are not low-income, who are in buildings that they don't have the opportunity of solar. This is people probably basically condo owners. These are single-family homes that don't have good solar exposure. And then these are commercial buildings with unsuitable roofs as well, for just this huge capacity of people that could potentially have be involved with solar if it wasn't for not having the opportunity in their own homes or buildings. You switch. Okay, this looks like it's going to be hard to read out there. This unfortunately came up. Yeah, can you focus that down?
We have to go all the way out there.
Could you give it a focus?
Yes.
So the reason I put this slide in here is just to give you a little feel. Getting better.
That's about
It's as far as it goes in that direction.
That's pretty good.
Okay, so the idea behind this is community solar, and these are all the different ways it can be done. This is large-scale community solar. This is subscription method. This is community organizers, community benefits, doing it by LLCs, utility-sponsored programs. There's just a lot of ways that community solar can be done, and we're going to be talking about some interesting examples tonight, and interested in hearing about ones other people have been involved with as well. Next one. So this is just to show a photo of utility-based community solar programs around the country that they're located in quite a few different places. Next slide. And then here's some possible criteria, because there's a lot of different ways to do community solar. that I've come across that might be a good way to think of, and there's others you could probably think of as well, of evaluating different ways of doing community solar. One is that it creates opportunities for low-income people and moderate-income people to participate. Cheaper than individual home ownership, offers economic benefits to the contributors, in other words, some kind of payback, increases solar ownership, and minimizes the inefficiencies of transmission. In other words, it's fairly located near usage. Next slide. So next we're going to have Joe talk to us. And I've got Joe's little bio here. It says Joe's a renewable energy professional who is, in 10 years, has helped hundreds of people get their own power from the sun, thousands more to learn from multiple benefits of clean energy. Often sought as a speaker, he is recognized as a leader in community solar and community participation programs, and with successful working collaborations with regular solar manufacturers, solar installers, and financial institutions.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you for having me here. And yeah, John and Tom asked me to come and talk about community solar, and I thought, oh my God, you know, this is such a can of worms. I got interested in community solar, I think starting back in 2005. First off, we did a project on Bainbridge where it was the most simple community solar you could do, and it's totally replicable and maybe something people can think about. We simply literally passed the hat to raise money to put solar on a school. No lawyers, no nothing, and next thing you know, we had a project. However, it was like about a 5 kilowatt system, and so, you know, fairly modest. So we were trying to think, well, how can we scale up that opportunity? And kind of how this idea, at least for me, germinated was I was giving a talk at City Hall on Bainbridge Island. Again, it was 2005, and it has a beautiful southern roof, and room was filled with people, and we were talking about solar, and I said, you know, wouldn't it be nice if just say all of us can invest in a project and put it up on the roof? Too bad we can't, because there's no incentive under the statute. Well, within the audience, there was Senator Phil Rockefeller, who approached me after the session and said, you know, Joe, I'm a lawmaker, let's talk. And so we worked together to craft a bill, and took 3 years of going down to Olympia and talking. And thanks to Phil, frankly, with his leadership, we actually got a bill passed into law. Hence, what we're going to talk about next. So let's see, how do I turn the page?
Next slide.
Oh, next slide. So a little quickly, again, this is all for you. I don't really like to hear myself speak. So if you have something, burning question, please raise your hand. But kind of what is community solar? Why should we care? Why should we do it? What are the challenges behind that? And there's plenty of them. And then what can we do to move this forward? I think as far as what is community solar, go ahead and turn the slide. To me, it's easy to describe. It's a pooling arrangement, if you will. Just people say, everyone in this room, put their money together, put solar on this building. Is there in fact solar on this building?
Yes.
Is it a community solar project?
It's not on this building, the one building up top, and it is community solar.
Yeah. So this building is owned by the city of Seattle?
No, this is owned by the Penny Neighborhood Association.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, so you know, it's happening here. I'm not surprised at all. So this is just a description of the project I did on Bainbridge. It was at the building where basically I gave that first talk so long ago, and it's a mixture of getting the investors together, which was frankly the easy part. You know, after we got the bill passed, but negotiating a contract with the city of Bainbridge Island, which frankly took 2 years. And
That was not the easy part.
that was not the easy part. Anyone try and negotiate with a government entity. And then the city has a net metering agreement with Puget Sound Energy, our utility, and we had a lease. Basically what we did is lease the roof on City Hall. The city gave us till 2020 to use the roof, put a solar system on, which my wife and I and 23 other families own. And you can't quite see it there, but and then we get from utility, which actually comes from the state of Washington, the community solar incentives. Okay, next slide. So first started talking about it in 2005. The bill was passed into law in 2009. Took 3 sessions. It's really, really hard to get anything done in Olympia, as I think anyone who's been down there would attest. Anything that's gotten more difficult. And then negotiating with the city just took absolutely forever. But part of it was new, you know, and no one really quite knew, myself included, kind of what we were doing. So there was a lot of sort of discovery. And I will give the city credit that, you know, they were a good negotiating partner. You know, no one raised the demand that, you know, that you'd say, okay, if they asked for something, and I said, well, I can't do that, and here's the reason, then they would drop it, and then they would do the same to me. So finding a good partner to negotiate with was critical, and we did have that with the city. The financing side, just a little funny aside, the city said, well, we're not going to sign a contract with you, Joe, until you have investors. But no investor will come forward without a contract. So kind of a catch-22. So how I resolved that is I just drafted a indication of interest for investors and no legalese here, and just said, you know, if you're interested in this project, there's no obligation, but if you're interested, sign here. And then I turn around to the city and say, yeah, I got investors. And then every single one of those people who did sign that indication of interest became an investor. The installation, so the project size is just about 72 kilowatts, just about $500,000. If we were going to do that project today, it would be at least 25% less because costs will come down so much. And we would have a lot more power too with that same size. I think just under 300 panels. Installation was about 3 weeks. So the installation was the easy part. And I have to say, the investors, I had to basically turn people down. It was not hard to find people. And the word got out about what the project, I was, you know, of course, being interviewed in the local press. But I did have to be careful about securities laws. I'd be very curious what, you know, Chris's experience and Reeves from A&R, what his experience was, because under security laws, if you're taking money in, people are giving you money, and you're going to do something with the intention of making a profit, that's a security, and then there's a whole bunch of laws behind that. And, well, our intention was to make a profit for the investors. So very quickly, how I did it is I could approach people that I knew, so not surprisingly, all the investors are kind of like my friends, so or just acquaintances. So that was entirely legal, but I couldn't like announce in the press we're looking for investors, or I couldn't put an ad, or I couldn't say anything on the website because that would be running afoul of the law. So next slide. So I'd be curious what some of the other groups experience. So why do this? Actually, what do you guys think? Why should we do this sort of work? I'd like to see just some of your ideas. Why should we care? Set an example. Reduce demand. The demand is huge with solar. There's no question that the demand is out there. Reduce demand for dirty electricity. Yes.
Give people ownership.
Give people ownership. How about keeping money in the community? Quite a bit of this money, that $500,000, where would that have gone otherwise? Probably Wall Street. That doesn't do any good for our local community. I mean, there's an incredible amount of money that communities have that does not stay in the community, and this was a way of keeping it local. You know, local products, you know, the components we used were made in Washington, local labor, local money, everything, local sun. So,
I like that you helped take over City Hall, at least the roof.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was actually quite fun. So even today we have there's a monitoring system in the lobby, and you can go and look at it. And yeah, it's actually worked out really well. So why do that? So there's my own example is, of course, I'm a solar guy. I work for a solar company, but I'm surrounded by trees, so I can't do it. So this was my way of actually getting into solar. So such was the case of so many other people who participated. And I think that would be the same case of pretty much all the other stories that we'll be hearing tonight. So it allows far more people to step forward and get involved, invest locally in these projects. And frankly, the way solar works, the more solar there is, the more there's going to be. It's a very positive feedback loop, literally. And also, people are concerned, there's time out. Going solar can be a hassle. You have to, think about it, hire a contractor, and do all this work. And it's just so much easier to do this. Our internal rate of return will be about 12%.
Per year or total?
Total, yeah.
Over what period of time?
Yeah, it will be from now till 2020. I mean, we'll make a profit. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty comfortable with that. But it's not like we're going to make gangbusters. But that was always the intention. I mean, you can't ask people to give you, a large amount of money that we did, and ask just to be nice.
Actually, you can.
Yeah.
Ellensburg did.
Oh, Ellensburg. So yeah, and then the financial barrier. In my case, actually, I think our lowest investment was about $7,000. So I'm afraid that's not cheap. But that was the only way I did make the decision not to have little micro investors. It would just administratively. I think Chris will be interested in his experience, but I just didn't want to go there. So we had 23 investors and all people I know. So next slide. Yeah, so how many projects are there out there? There's the one I described, just that I did. But I just got this from the Washington State University Energy Extension. There are, as you see, as per year, since the rules became active, a number of projects. But we're now at 63 projects, which I think is phenomenal.
Do you know it's spread over the state?
Well, good question. Most of them, frankly, are on this side of the mountains, but I know Spokane,
Copenhagen.
yeah,
Inland Power.
Inland Power, yeah. So I always had kind of a goal if we can hit 50, and I call this program a success. And there's still, I think, some in the pipeline, right? We're going to hear about Tacoma, city of Tacoma. So I would say this shows this program. There's strong interest in doing these.
And the 2015 massive number is based on.
Well, why was there a big surge? No, what do you guys think? I actually not sure.
Because people saw the incentive in it.
This is the incentives. I think what happens, there are a couple of utilities that kind of broke the seal. They figured out that utilities make a really great administrator for the program, and they had this phenomenal payout available to them, and to have their ratepayers fund these long-term projects. And we were involved in 5 of those that happened last year, and the RFP process, like everything was canned. So I think Woodinville Environmental Foundation kind of came together and said, all right, this is a really workable package, and just put it out there, and it took hold.
Yeah, so the learning curve really has accelerated. So you see, it's 2.5 megawatts, but I think the main thing is how many people participated in this. And I actually don't have hard numbers. Unfortunately, they don't quite report that. But I think judging from some of the projects, like the city of Seattle, hundreds of people, and I'm not sure the Vista project probably similarly. So I think we're well over probably a couple thousand people. Go to the next slide. And that's the whole point, or one of the main points, I think, is that by virtue of this, it's 63 projects, but thousands of people have been able to go solar who otherwise could not. These are people who have committed their money to these projects who are going to further the renewable cause, further the sustainable cause. I mean, these are voters, basically, we've created. So it's more people have gone solar by residential, but this is still a fairly good percentage of the total. And I think, if anything, that's one of the biggest takeaways. Is just so many more people could get involved. Anything else? So what challenges do you experience? Well, in my case, it was just very complex, and we didn't really know what we were doing. I had the benefit of having a top-notch law firm step forward and give us some pro bono work, which was incredibly helpful. I couldn't have done it otherwise, because their bill would have been like 6 figures if I actually had to pay them, which would have been made it impossible, because we were literally thinking this up as we were coming along. The legislature, trying to pass a bill in Olympia. You make a bill, and what goes in and what comes out is very, very different. Just tell you a quick story. Under the current community solar legislation, the maximum size is 75 kilowatts. Why that? I'll tell you why. During the legislative process, we were proposing 100 kilowatts. One legislator said, no, it shouldn't be more than 50 for some reason. And then we just said, well, let's split the difference. It was just something, just make a decision, right? Let's keep it going. So 75, and I was thinking, what's 75? Security laws compliance. Again, I'm very interested in hearing some of my colleagues' experience, but you're doing the sort of dance of, particularly if you want to make this as a profit making venture for people participating, where I couldn't be too public. I mean, I could talk about the project, but I just couldn't say, hey, you want to invest in this? That if I would be run afoul of the law. IRS rules, there was some tricky things with we had the 1603 tax treasury grant, and there's some somewhat complex tax issues I learned where we didn't want to create what would be called a false lease, and such details as what price do we sell the system to the city at the end of the lease. We couldn't just give it to them because that could be determined as being a false lease, and we would have to return the treasury grant to the U.S. government. So things that you sort of learn along the way. Overly complex, in other words, just ridiculous. Also unrealistic expectations, and by that I mean, I think talking with some of the other local government entities, you talk to them about doing these projects, and somehow they got in their mind that this was some boondoggle I was trying to put on, and I'd make just a huge killing, and no frickin' idea. This is not a money-making venture. So people, I think, had to dial it back as to, this is just people trying to make something happen, and but I'm afraid I just wasn't always successful in getting that message across. Okay. So imagine we were able to expand this concept and have thousands and thousands more people take part in solar, and the momentum this would create for the sustainability field. I think community solar is an incredibly valuable toolbox to have. And not everyone in the industry agreed with me when I first proposed this idea, but I hope that is the case now. Because this is a valuable way of moving forward with the kind of future that we would like. So thank you very much for having me here.
Any questions for Joe before we move on?
Yeah, sir.
Typical scale, you said there's 63 projects and some thousand. I'm just wondering how many.
Oh, what's the size range? Well, Reeves, I think you did the largest project.
Well, it's still capped at 75 kW. So the
Well-
largest one, I've got a picture in my presentation, is 423 kilowatts, so 6 of these projects put together at 74.8 kW each at a single site. But we also did one for Seattle that was either 17 or 22, I forget, it's pretty small.
Yeah, so you just do these.
Public.
Yeah, and it'd be real property that's owned by what they call local government entity. Again, this was what the law came through. So in my case, it was a city hall, but it could be a fire station, schools, but not a university. For some reason, there was fine print there. Like I said, I take it, if we did community solar here, there must be some government ownership of this. So this was okay, yeah, utilities have a more of a free range to this. And frankly, I think utilities are ideally suited to really take this, enlighten utilities. Because like I said, they have the administrative capabilities to do this. They're going to be around, they're, in the community for, many, many years. So as opposed to a private individual like myself. So I think utilities are the way to go. Yes, sir.
So does every one of these need $100,000 worth of legal?
No. No.
Have you sort of blazed the trail and now it's just...
I have no. If someone wanted to look at our contract, they can. I'm open source. But yeah, I think that hurdle's been significantly lowered, frankly. Thank God. But it was just at that time, we literally didn't know what.
Is there a fairly standard recipe for that kind of stuff on these projects?
They talk with some of the guys who've done.
I noticed that Ashland had their power purchase agreement and their contracts all on the website.
Yeah.
So you can,
Yeah. I would love someone doing a study on that. What are the legal, some young law student studying, what were some of the contractual advances done? Because what I found, our little 72 kilowatt project was as complicated as a megawatt project, it seemed. It was like, it's ridiculously so. So, but yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, Pam.
The people that bought into the system on Lake Ridge had the Puget Sound Energy customers.
That's right.
Did you also mandate that they be made for driving residents?
They, almost all of them were, but that was not a requirement. It actually, frankly, is easier, say someone from, a PS, say from Bellingham or something, yes, they could invest it, but it just wouldn't be the same. For our project, you could literally drive by and there it is. I see it every day. It's like when I'm at the gym, it's right there. So, so it's very much a local project, yes. And then I think that's a big value. Yes, it'd be kind of nice to invest in a project east of the mountains, but I don't know, would it mean the same too, as opposed to those who participated in, say, this building and live nearby? I don't know. Yes?
How does compensation work from the utility going back to the investors? Is it a 1-to-1 ratio? I know there's been a lot of discussion on that. The system basically is pumping power back out onto the grid.
Well, as far as the net metering, it's simply just the size, whatever the city in our case had as net metering agreement, like say a homeowner with which is basically a contract with the utility to take the power. That's I think fairly straightforward.
I can answer that a little bit. In the case of the Avista project in Spokane, they're crediting the owners, the investors in that, 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour. In the case of the project in Tacoma, which we'll also be speaking about tonight, they're crediting the homeowners 4.05 cents per kilowatt hour, a different amount. I have no idea why, but it's in that 4 to 5 cents range is what they're. The Avista, I interviewed the manager of Avista, and he said they're mandated by the State Utilities and Transportation Commission for this specific amount. They're crediting.
See,
In addition to the incentives.
Okay, I didn't know that. So how in our project, I'm the administrator, so utility, they don't want to deal with 23 people. They didn't just deal with me. So I do the paperwork and I get a check once a year, and then I split it up. I become very popular at some point of the year. Yeah. So Yeah. Yes, sir.
So how do you deal with maintenance and the cost of, like cleaning the panels?
Well, so I think the same as any residential owner or commercial owner. In this case, we had a cleaning arrangement with the installer. They come and clean the panels. And some ways, the grain does a pretty good job too. So the productive capabilities of the system has exceeded our expectations. It's done really well.
One last question, then let's move on.
You bet.
Just for the benefit of, oh, sorry. You said you sell the system back to the city at the end of the period of time?
Yes.
And best way to do it, or would you just own it in perpetuity?
Well, we could. So I really don't want to be the administrator in perpetuity. I don't like to do that. But our agreement will be selling it to the city at fair market value, and don't get me started on that. That was what is fair market value of the system 5 years in the future? We don't know. So, and the city tried to.
So in 5 years or something?
Yeah, we'll negotiate with them for a price. So
one last question.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
I think you can be just as connected to a project in Eastern Washington if you have on your app, you can daily be monitoring your operations. And that you got a cam so you can watch all the birds going by and everything else and changing weather. Our next speaker is Reeves Clippard. Yes, he's our next speaker. And he works with A&R Solar, and he can introduce himself beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so as John said, I'm Reeves Clippard, CEO of A&R Solar. So we're a solar integrator. We work across Washington and Oregon. We work at kind of all scales. So we started residential, we do commercial, industrial. We've done a lot of community solar. We did about 1 megawatt of community solar last year. And I've already done a couple hundred kW this year. And I will be talking mostly about Oregon. So our neighbors to the south have just passed really innovative and broad legislation encouraging community solar. And so go ahead and get in. All right, so what I want to do here is just kind of set the stage. This is really, what's the best way? So customers right now, you as utility customers have very few choices. So it's a very simple kind of grid here, on the left being totally dependent on the utility, on the right being totally independent. Right now, so you really only have maybe 3 places to sit on this chart. Most of us are down here in the gray area, where you have 0 resiliency and you're totally dependent on the grid. A few outliers might be someone that has a generator backup. So if the grid goes down, you have some resiliency, right? And then the Pacific Northwest is home to a lot of people living off-grid, right? Fully resilient, multiple energy inputs, a lot of renewables, totally independent from the grid. The problem is it's not realistic for all of us to go independent of the grid. And it's not really a benefit to the world for everyone to go off-grid. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is a continuum is starting to form between fully dependent and no resiliency and the top corner, totally dependent and resilient. And it's my feeling that in the middle is the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people, where we can make the grid more robust, more resilient. And I want to set that stage because I think community power can have a big role to play in that, and I'll outline that a little bit. So the law that passed in Oregon is called the Clean Electricity Coal Transition Plan. So it did 3 things. One was it doubled the RPS, which is a renewable portfolio standard in Oregon, to 50% of their power. So by 2040, 50% of Oregon's power will need to come from renewables. And an interesting statistic that was put out by one of the national laboratories is that 60% of the solar that has been deployed to date can be attributed to RPS standards. So I put that out there to just kind of highlight that while the RPS does not have a solar set aside, wind will get some of the contracts, but solar is expected to get a lot of the contracts to generate renewable energy in Oregon. The investor-owned utilities, or IOUs, are going to be required to remove coal from their portfolio. They do not have as much hydro as we have in Washington, and that has to happen by 2030, and that includes any power that's coming across the line from Idaho and Montana. And then the Public Utility Commission down there, the PUC, established a community solar program, and they made this specifically broad and loose. And what they wanted to do is allow a lot of market opportunity and not try and pick some winners. So next slide. So the barriers that got removed by passing this law is it allows any retail customer, whether that's residential, commercial, industrial, of one of these investor-owned utilities, which covers 70% of the population of Oregon, can take some portion of the output of one of these projects. They're going to accomplish that through virtual net metering, like we heard like Avista's doing, where I could see the benefit on my bill for a system produced somewhere else. It defined an owner and a subscriber as two different people. So an owner might have some actual interest within the company, whereas a subscriber might be some kind of lease mechanism where they did establish a 10-year minimum for that lease period for anyone participating in the community solar program. And this is going to be off-site, potentially. It doesn't have to be off-site. But the real key is that this can be located anywhere in the state. So while Joe was mentioning that it's really powerful to be able to look at the panels here and at the zoo and on Bainbridge Island and feel ownership towards those and know that they're, you're generating electricity in your own community, Oregon is saying you could have a project in Eastern Oregon where there's more sun, cheaper land, and the utility will be required to sign a 20-year power purchase agreement with that project and do virtual net metering, even if that system is not on their own grid. And so that's one of the restrictions that we have in Washington, is that the project and the person receiving the benefit has to be within the utility territory. The project does have to be in Oregon, and the customer receiving the benefit does also have to be in Oregon, but those are really the only restrictions at this point. And it can be managed by either a utility or an independent third party. And one of the barriers that's getting removed here is allowing access to economies of scale. So I don't know how familiar y'all are with solar economics, but rooftop solar has a tendency to be more expensive than a large utility scale project. So for instance, I think our average residential price these days is about $4 a watt, a little less than $4 a watt as prices are coming down. There are projects right now, utility scale projects in the several megawatt size, that are going in at $1.26 to $1.40 a watt. And so what this allows is for developers to go out and do a large scale project and take advantage of those economies of scale and pass them on to a residential customer that might not have the means to spend that $30,000, but they can make a much smaller investment but get the same benefit. There are a few known limits. The project does have to be at least 25 kilowatts in size, and it can't offset more than 100% of the customer's consumption. Yeah. So they just passed this law. They're in a rule writing phase. They're expected to take about a year to get through the rulemaking. If you look at the PUC's docket, there's a lot of business that they have to transact. They don't know, what structures will be allowed. Will there be tenants in common as a legal structure? Will it be direct ownership through an LLC or a corporation, or is there some other structure that they will allow? What are those tax implications, the securities implications, the IRS? Oregon has an income tax. So what are the tax implications associated with that? What makes it community? What's eligible? Can anyone just slap the title community on there and split up ownership? A lot of these mega projects already have multiple owners. So how do the projects and administrators even apply to become certified? And who can apply? And what incentives will be available, if any? So one of the things that the law said was, you know, PUC, you got to go out there and study the incentives and see what's been working and what hasn't been working and try and structure something else. And I have this last, but it's one of the most important points, is one of the definitions in there is defining what's considered a resource value of solar. And some of the economic value that you get from participating in community solar will be that resource value. So the PUC has to define what that is. And so, again, depending on how closely you're following the industry, we have net metering. You know, you get this one-to-one value at retail rate with the utility. And what's happening in places like Missouri and Hawaii and some other places is they're eliminating net metering. And they're saying, well, we have this value of solar tariff. And I think New York is going through this. Someone else in the Northeast just recently did this. Massachusetts, I think, is going through rulemaking as well. And I think this can be done well. It can be done really poorly. And I think to be done well, it needs to be really transparent so people can discover what is the resource value. What's happened in Nevada is their utility commission said, well, this is the value of solar. And Solar City recently came back. So Nevada just had this huge crash because they eliminated net metering. And Solar City came back and did this study and said, well, actually, you're not measuring all the benefits of solar to the grid. And so Oregon has to figure that out. Utilities have something called a local marginalized value. So power in one spot has a different value to them than power somewhere else on their grid. And that might be caused through congestion or infrastructure or load or what have you. And so Utility Commission has a really fun task ahead of them in trying to figure that out. And I have a feeling that Washington will be looking. I just heard one of the utility commissioners here in Washington speaking, and he was very glad that we do not have net metering or retail or a value of solar tariff on his docket for the foreseeable future. So I want to open this up a little bit more and have you thinking a little bit broader than just community solar. So community solar is really fascinating because it is taking off and it's been identified as one of the fastest growing segments in the solar industry nationwide. And what's great about solar and one of the opportunities there is that it's very accessible and it's become very cheap compared to a lot of other renewable energy technologies that are just starting to get their feet under them. But the community ownership going through that process of, you know, $100,000 in legal fees to figure out how you can have shared ownership of an energy asset that belongs to a community and not to the utility is really novel, but people are looking at different technologies now. So I was just talking to an engineer last Tuesday, and she's working with a small community up in Alaska. They're a 20-minute plane ride from Juneau, so they're pretty isolated. Juneau has really cheap power. They've got a lot of hydro, and so they're not really looking at generating more electricity or anything else. But this little community, 20-minute flight away, is 100% reliant on diesel. And so their power is extremely expensive. And so the project that she's looking at is Juneau produces X number of tons of food waste per day. And she's looking at barging that food waste to this other community so they can have a combined heat and power plant in this remote community, put in district heating, and also have electricity, essentially doing a biofuel project. Yeah, really innovative. It's pretty cool.
Happen, or are they just...
I don't know. She's going through feasibility right now. Yeah. So next slide. We have had community wind in Washington. I had a really hard time tracking down much information about this. It started going in about 2010, 2011. There were some grants, some loans that went out, and I don't know how many towers went in, but we do have community wind here in Washington.
Is this in Ellensburg?
This is Ellensburg, yeah. It's a Cascade, I have it up there, Cascade Community Wind Company. I think you can actually see, I think that's I-90 in the background. I think you see that to the right as you're passing, as you're heading east.
It's the first one that you see when you go past the egg beater.
Right.
Egg beater one that's as you're going east.
Right. So I know they wanted to expand. I haven't been able to find that story, and
I talked with them when they were trying to assemble enough investors for a second tower. And they ran short, so they didn't install that second tower, and I'm not sure where they went after that. I haven't heard any more.
Yeah, there's very little that I can find after 2011.
Who organized this? And
You know, I'm not positive.
okay.
Yeah.
They have an amazing visitor center up there. I think, what's that place called?
The Wild Horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's PSCs.
Okay.
So the rest of so I think this is just like one or potentially a second tower.
I think it's just one now, and it stands way away from all those other massive towers.
Yeah, it's much smaller than the rest of the towers that you see as well.
To the west of the all the way to the tower.
Would WSU, like Bill Lou, would he know about this? Or?
He may.
Gary would probably know.
Yeah, Gary would.
In developed under the state solar powers or community power act? Or,
You know, I'm really not sure. Yeah, I really just wanted it up there as kind of an example of broadening the horizon outside of solar for community solar.
You could go in as an investor on the capital costs and get money, paid back to you on the basis of being an owner, or you could be a purchaser of the output of the system and buy the power from the wind generator as green energy. There were two ways to go in.
Okay.
Investment.
Interesting. If you'll do the next slide for me.
I'm curious how they scaled with as far as maintenance, because they do need something.
Right. Yeah.
Do they let some of the guys who are doing this larger wind farm?
I would think it would maybe they're doing that on the side or
Would that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
You guys have free time.
So this is the Avista Community Solar Project. This is on utility-owned land. It says it's about 423 kilowatts. It's actually 6 separately metered systems. So here you can see that they started to take advantage of economies of scale. The cost per watt of this was much lower than when we were doing a single 75 kW system for some of the other utilities. And they actually have a lot more land there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what they did is they sold each panel individually for, it was like $1,400 or something like that.
200 or
It's 15
280 watts per panel, and I think it was $1,200 or $1,400 they sold them for.
Right.
And I actually have a number of slides in my presentation. But what the deal is, it's a 5-year program. They figure break even after 4 years, and people are just making money for the last year.
Right.
And the ownership of the panels goes back to the utility. They don't give you any credit after that because they thought the administrative costs would be too high. So Tacoma did it in a completely different way, but we'll get to that. And they say a maximum of 12 panels that each individual or small business can buy.
Okay.
So are those iTech?
Those are iTech, and they use Made in Washington as well. Yeah.
Then do the people purchasing that also get the state incentive monies too?
Yes, they get the incentive money, then they get the 4.9 cents per kilowatt of the generation fee.
Right.
For those 5 years only. And it sunsets right when our state incentives sunset in 2020.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting play from a utility using that model. It's kind of a win-win-win, but I kind of feel like the utility is making out a little bit better than everyone else because they, typically as they're building new generation, it gets put out into the rates for everybody to pay. And this, they went out and said, give us $1,200, we're going to build this thing for you. We'll pay you back in 5 years, but then the next 20, 30 years of the life of the system is ours things.
And it's the incentive that allows them to do that.
It is the incentive that allows, yeah, it's $1.08 a kilowatt hour for this. Yeah.
And City of Tacoma, in their project, they did just the opposite. They said at the end of the 4 years, because they just started in the last couple of months, that they're going to estimate how much income we're going to get over the life of these panels, and we're going to pay you at the end of this 4 years.
Interesting.
Estimated amount, because we don't want to administrate it for the next 20 years. And they just do it that way, and they call it fair, but they're a public utility as opposed to an investor-owned.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think just one last slide. Where again, I want to talk about economies of scale, and that's community storage. And so again, there's a lot of buzz every time we mention the word Tesla in a newsletter. It is the most open newsletter anyone has ever put out. There's a lot of interest about the Powerwall, having storage in your house, grid defection, moving yourself off the grid and saying, screw the utility, I got this on my own. But we have a couple of large scale, these are flow batteries. We have these manufacturers here in state. And I had a really interesting conversation with one of their engineers, and he was really talking, it's very similar in some ways to solar, that the return, the investment is really there at a larger scale. You can really make it a lot cheaper per kilowatt hour by installing larger and more. And there's not the mechanisms in Washington or in Oregon right now to really take all the benefits that batteries can allow. So, you know, backup power is an obvious one, but most of the time they're sitting there just doing nothing otherwise. And so what's happening in California as they're aggregating storage is they're looking at VAR support, frequency regulation, firming up renewables. You know, if the peak usage in California is in the evening, solar peaks in the middle of the day, how do you carry over that last couple of hours to make sure that you don't have to ramp up and use all this natural gas just to take care of the peak? And so you have this value stack that happens with storage to where you can make a better economic case for it. And in Washington and Oregon, that's not happening at a residential scale. And at industrial scale, I think this is the one out in Pullman, so this is on a Vistas network. They're doing experiments. How do we control this? How do we communicate with it? How safe and secure is the network in case hackers come in and try and mess with it? But what captures my imagination about this is, again, coming back to resiliency. I think in the back of everyone's mind in the Pacific Northwest is a subduction zone and the big one's coming, and what are we going to do? And, you know, we have some technologies that were developed in response to the Fukushima disaster that, like, for my system, I have PV on my house, and I have a small outlet that even if the power is out, I can at least get 15 amps out of this outlet from my system on a sunny day. And I went with non-made in Washington equipment because I really wanted that tiny bit of security that might allow me to keep some food cold and charge my phone so I can stay communicating in this disaster. And so one of the growing markets are microgrids. So again, if it doesn't make sense for each one of us to go out and spend $10,000 with Tesla to put some backup power in our house, what happens if we can get this kind of thing happening at a substation to keep a couple of feeders going to where some people may have power, maybe you have power on a rotating basis. And what if you're going in with your neighbors to invest in that? And it's not just driven by the utility. I think that's all I've got.
So on that last slide.
Yeah.
Sorry, are we looking at 5 cargo containers?
Yeah, 5 short ones. So that's 4 batteries and then the inverters and control on the end.
So are they filled with what we're seeing at the front? Are there a whole stack of those right behind them?
I don't believe so. I think most of the fluid is kind of in the last two-thirds of it, and then those are some controls and pumps and things like that, maintenance. It's a really fascinating technology. I have no idea how it works. But if you go to, this is UET, and I'm forgetting the other company, the other storage company.
Sona?
No, Sona's a German company, and they're really at that residential scale.
Okay.
The flow batteries, Uni Energy Technologies, and I forget the other.
What about the new technology, the saltwater generating?
I'm afraid I don't know much about it. I see a lot of really fascinating kind of press releases that happen. Here's this great new technology, it'll revolutionize everything. Look at Perskovites, and oh, we got carbon nanotubes, and we're making spinach generate electricity. But when you look at it, you know, it's lab looking for funding because they made this thing this big that will generate, you know, a very small amount of electricity, and taking it to scale is really difficult. And the UW actually has a great solar research program where they're trying to take some of these technologies to scale, but it's difficult, especially at the price that crystalline silicon technology is at now. And so I give that response because I have a lot of customers that say, well, I want to wait a couple of years and see what comes down the line. I just want to wait a couple of years. I just saw this really cool thing. I don't know if anyone remembers Nano Solar and their printing modules, and they put out a press release every 2 years, and I don't know how many deals they killed for us because someone said, I'm just going to wait until I can just paint this on my house. And you're missing this opportunity to do something now, waiting for some magic market disruptor, when the disruption has already happened and is happening around us.
I would add just any of these, it's great to get these concepts, but from concept to market, 10, 15 years. At least.
Yeah, no matter how much money you put at it.
If ever. So, and that's true not just of renewables, but any new technology. So that's what people spend. That's what we love about photovoltaic is it's old technology. This has been around 60 years. Right. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah, just keeps getting cheaper.
Cheaper, more efficient. So yeah, we love the new stuff, but honestly, it's going to be 10, 15 years at least before anything hits.
Yeah.
George?
Just a question. So, a bunch of investor bodies get together, make a community solar project, 75 kW, generates renewable energy. Why doesn't the utility just do that? Why do we have to go through the brain damage of doing it ourselves?
Well, the utilities have been doing it. So that was that big boom that we saw last year. That was Seattle City Light, that was Franklin Beauty, Benton Beauty, Avista, Tacoma, Peninsula, Pacific Power, Pacific PUD, all these utilities finally figuring out that they've got the infrastructure to make it happen, and they have the most to win because they can get their ratepayers to voluntarily build generation for them.
So the fact that the incentive law is sunsetting may not matter because utilities have now been sort of kicked in the head.
I think it absolutely matters. Yeah, because that's just scratching the surface, and what you have are maybe a few hundred customers. I mean, even if Avista has 1,000 customers, they still have another 30,000 in the Spokane area that don't have access to this yet. And so there's a real concern to me, and I think community solar helps address that, which is, you've probably heard of the digital divide. People without means not able to access the internet and the educational and the informational resources that we enjoy by just having this in our pocket. And there's a risk, I think, with renewables doing the same thing. And I know people say that our solar customers, a solar contractor, they're just rich people, which is not true. They're middle class. A lot of people they're making a choice, and it's not money. Our sales team, I'm trying to not cuss. So they can't sell to rich people. Rich people don't buy solar. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how good their return. So one of the things that was happening last year is you saw 4-year returns on residential solar. A rich person's like, that's not good enough. We got to 10-year returns and said, we crossed the 10-year return mark. Give me 9. Okay, let me see what I can do. Here's 9. Give me 7. Okay, here's 7. Here's 4. That's not good enough. So one of the things that Oregon does have that I didn't put up here is they have a 10% set aside for low income. So they want low income owners owning 10% of the community generation that's out there. And so it's really interesting. So there's a for-profit co-op that is doing I think it's a 30 kW system in Portland on what's equivalent to the Mountaineers down there. I forget the name of it. Thank you. That's on their building. So they have $1,000 buy-in, which is tough for low income. Low income people are not going to be able to pull that off. But other co-ops and other models are going to come out that allow them to do that, especially at these enormous scales. Talking to SunPower manufacturer, they're not considering any project under 50 megawatts. Anything below that is not worth their time. And what you're going to have with that are these people with data centers coming in and buying 20 megawatts of that, and the industrial customer coming along and buying another 15 megawatts of that. and on down the line until you get a lot of residential people maybe taking advantage of that economy of scale, taking a smaller chunk of it, but with a big impact. And then hopefully we can figure out some way to pull in these other communities in need.
Both the managers of the Vista project and the Tacoma City Light project both said that there's just no economics for this at this time without incentives being extended on a statewide basis.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, that the buyers, the owners of these projects, they're investing in it, they're getting $1.08 from the state incentives, and then they're getting 4-point-something cents for just how much that they're producing. And the only possibility of doing that is if we really scale it up into a radically larger scale so that the overall costs come down.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that some of these smaller projects can't happen, but I think it's going to be more community-driven, value-driven, of we want this resiliency, we want some of these features being generated here. Someone remind me, I think the community solar was passed, and it was 2009.
And the rules took a year.
And the rules took a year, so it took another 5 years for it to take off. There's a handful of projects happening here and there, another 5 years for it to take off. So, yeah.
Can you guys address what just happened in the last legislature and what we hope
Oh,
for next
man.
time? Really
So you really do want to hear
Jeremy,
me
you
cuss.
probably have something to say about that.
What happened during the last legislative session?
The same thing has happened across the country with partisan divide. So with it,
Hey Jerry, could you come up here and that way our
Oh yeah, we got some people online.
our internet line folks can hear you and see you.
One point of information, if you're interested in community wind, Heather Rhodes Weaver is one of the people that's working a lot with wind in our state. And
Yeah, I think she's just on Vashon, right? So she's close by.
yeah, she's on Vashon, but she's an advisor. She has done community solar as well. I mean, community wind as well.
So what happened in the last legislative session?
Well, what happened in the last legislative session was that our bill to extend and reform the incentive program that we have was actually really very popular. All the stakeholders were pretty much in agreement on it, and in the House there was bipartisan support. The bill passed out of the House 77-20, but when it got to the Senate, the chair of the Energy Committee, Doug Erickson, decided to use it as a weapon against Jay Inslee's implementing the clean air rule. So basically, Erickson said, if that rule is enacted, I'm going to shoot your solar program. I'm going to kill your solar program. So we're really kind of, in the same place that a lot of other legislators that are so divided are at. It's really tough to get anything to move.
So one thing John was really asking me for was things that people can do now to get involved in community solar. So
Well, while you're in the legislature, before we go to that,
well, I think
what needs to happen in the legislature, and what's the potential for us getting
The
a bill
Senate
something
needs
like-
to flip.
Okay.
That's the simple answer. That's the short answer.
Okay.
I mean, look who is the big Trump supporter.
Right.
Doug Erickson.
Yeah. Do the math.
Yeah.
Well, and look
So
who wasn't Bill Rockefeller's chair of the Energy Committee when
Yes.
it passed before, so you have a completely different
Total
yeah. Yeah, even in 2009, when the community solar program was passed, we were looking at a budget situation, but the bill really had good support on both sides of the aisle, and the governor wanted it. So we're in a different situation now. We've been under this incredible pressure on the budget to comply with the court ruling on the McCleary case and to fund education. And even though the revenues have increased a lot in the last couple of years because the economy's improved so much around the state, that they're still chasing
dollars wherever they can find them to fill this this hole created by the education budget.
Is there any possibility that the chair of the State Energy Committee would change the State Senate Energy Committee without the Republicans losing control, or is he really set there?
As far as I know, there's really nothing like that being talked about. Senator Erickson it's interesting. ITEC Energy is in his district, and you know, they're a big employer up there, but so is the Ferndale refinery. So 40% of his campaign contributions come from fossil fuel companies, and yeah. So I don't see him moving anytime soon unless we can turn that Senate over.
And we just need to change 3 people in the Senate. 3 need to go from Democrat, Republican to Democrat.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. So yeah, there you have it. You know, I don't know if you want me to go on about how, you know, solar in general is still very dependent on subsidies. And even though the cost per watt, you know, for installing this is coming down, it's still necessary for us to have a federal tax credit. And the community solar programs that have been created by utilities are awesome, but they're really totally dependent on the incentives. When we were talking about what kind of rates we wanted to see in a reformed incentive program, Seattle City Light's position was that community solar would have to get at least 45 cents a kilowatt hour from the program in order to continue in Seattle. That's a huge subsidy. I mean, let's see, if you look on the Cal ISO website, the day-ahead price for electricity up and down the West Coast right now is 3.6 cents a kilowatt hour. So, you know, that's. I mean, I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago. It was a penny and a half. Of course, you know, at the springtime when there's a lot of water flowing and so forth. But this is, you know, this is the challenge. If you're looking at the homeowner who wants to put solar on their house, they got a completely different metric. This is a home improvement. You can do whatever you want on your house. People spend ridiculous amounts of money on just stuff that has no payback, but they want it on their house.
Countertops.
And that's kind of, you know, solar is sort of in that realm at the retail level for residential, you know, purchasers. But if you look at the utility side, the math is completely different. It's really all dependent on the lowest cost. So, you know, going forward, we need to get, really ultimately, we need to get carbon to pay for solar. How do we get there? I don't know. We've got to flip the Senate.
Carbon tax. Carbon tax. Anything else you'd like Jeremy to address?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, why don't you tell the people who they were just hearing from?
This was Jeremy, who's one of the owners of Puget Sound Solar and one of the oldest solar contractors in Washington State, who also has done quite a bit of community solar projects. No, not oldest person, oldest companies. And we'll be hearing from Jeremy again a little bit more when we get to Tacoma project. But we haven't got there yet. Next, Chris Herman is going to step up here and talk a little bit about his Edmonds project briefly, because we're running a little late. Sure. And we got the next slide.
John put slides together for me. Wasn't that nice? I've gotten so lazy in my old age. Yeah, so this was the thing where after teaching classes at the UW for 25 years and talking to anybody that would listen, it's like there's a lot of people that want to do solar and just can't for a myriad of reasons. So we thought, well, let's do community solar. And when it made it through the legislature with double the incentive rate, we thought, hey, this is great, man. This shouldn't be hard at all. And the city of Edmonds actually called me and said, we'd like to do a community solar project. And I said, oh, great, okay, yeah, I can come over tomorrow. And I show up, it's like the top 6 people from the city of Edmonds are sitting there, including the mayor. And they're going, so what do you think we can do? So I laid out all the incentives and the way we were picturing this happening. And the facilities director said, have you got a minute now? I said, yeah. He goes, come on over. So we went over to the Francis Anderson Center. They already got a ladder set up. The center had new seismic upgrades, new electrical upgrades, a new roof. You know, it was like, this is perfect. I'm looking at this solar window and just, yeah, cool. And I thought it was going to be pretty easy, right? Because the top 6 people all wanted this. And 4 of those top 6 people changed in the year and a half that it took us to get it through the legislature, which amounted to 4 times. And I remember one of the last ones, I just kind of looked at them when they wanted to discuss it, just like put it off to one more meeting. I said, you know what? You guys called me. If you don't want to do this, I'm going to take my ball and go home. And then I just shut up, and they looked at me, and one of my, proponents on the board said, no, we need to vote on this now, right? Yeah, let's vote. Okay. And so we got it passed. And then the naysayer on the city council also thought that maybe the Historic Preservation Commission would be able to drag this down. And so I had to do a whole presentation on how the U.S. Secretary of the Interior thinks that solar on historic buildings is a completely appropriate use for that building because it keeps them viable into the future. So I had this nice PowerPoint presentation all set up, and I said something, and the head of the Historic Preservation Commission said, oh, I said something about you'll barely be able to see the panels. He said, we want people to see them, don't we? And I said, well, yeah, I do, but I didn't think you did. Oh, no, according to the Secretary of the Interior and the State Department of, and he started laying out my whole case for me. It was just beautiful, and I just kind of sat down and let him finish. And at the very end, it was so fun. I like seeing good things happen to good people, but I like seeing bad people get squashed too. and so the head of the commission said, so Mr. Plunkett, how are you going to characterize this meeting when you report back to the city council? He said, I'll say you were generally supportive. And he said, no, you're going to say it was a love fest. And we want the city council to approve $1,000 so that the Historic Preservation Commission can buy a sun slice. And so it was sweet. I had to keep from going. And so that was, jumping back, our forum was really different than most of them. And, we wanted the buy-in to be small. So the buy-in was $1,000. But as a co-op, we weren't registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I mean, we could have. It's like a 2-page form, but then the board of directors has more potential liability. You're limited to 25 members, and if you do it as an LLC, they pretty much have to know each other. You can't advertise. You can't use words like investors. We have member owners. We don't have profit. We have surplus. We don't have return on investment. We have return of investment plus surplus. We didn't sell shares. We sold sun slices. So we danced around these words, and it made it a little tougher. But we still got 93 members, raised $174,000, put 23 kilowatts on the Francis Anderson Center. So it was a pretty cool thing. But when people call and say, well, we want to do that, I go, have they reinstituted the 1603 Treasury grant? What's that? Yeah, instead of a 30% tax credit, you used to be able to get a grant. So for nonprofits and other people that didn't have tax liability and couldn't figure out a way to pass it along to their member owners, you're kind of stuck. But we did get our grant from the government, and I go and read the meter every 3 months. It's kind of fun. And then I sent a bill to the city of Edmonds, and they're paying 40% less than they would have if they bought the power from the utility. So they're getting a good deal. We give them $249 a year for a roof lease. Very much to it. The building is better insured now than it was before, which was another whole list of things I had to jump through. It's hard to tell somebody, your insurance kind of sucks. When we're done, you're going to have a lot better insurance. But, they wanted them to inspect the joint between the drip flashing and the roofing once a year and document it. It's like, that's kind of like pulling up a plant to see how well the roots are growing. You're not going to do that. So anyway, so what else are we talking about? So it's a cooperative corporation. Most people think a co-op means nonprofit. Not so. REI, Ace Hardware.
Next one.
Oh, you got another one. Cool. Oh, there we are. So we pay out $100 a year, twice a year. So we had two phases. First phase was 6 kilowatts, and we had something like 20 members. And then we raised a lot more money, and we got 93 members. So in January, we hand out checks for $100. Every $1,000 somebody invested, can't use that word. Come and get me, copper. Yeah, the SEC.
How many participants do you have?
93. 93 members. They don't all make it to meetings. You know, some of these members I've never even met, but it's kind of fun when you go into PCC and somebody recognizes you and go, oh, you were the solar co-op. Yeah, I read the meter, I send them a bill. that's,
Should they have to live in Edmonds, or it doesn't matter?
No, that was one of the things, and I'm glad Leslie's not here, because I think she kind of skirted the line on that for us, because when it first came out, I just come back from New Jersey working for FEMA. And my understanding when I left was everybody in the co-op who was an owner member had to be within SNOPUD service territory. Came back and found out that somebody had done a community project in PSE territory, and PSE said, no, they don't have to live in the territory. They just have to live in the state. They have to be eligible for the state incentive. And I said, cool. So I called up SNOPUD and said, is that the case with you guys too? It should be kind of consistent, you think? And, well, we'll get back to you. And we were getting ready to shut down, you know, fundraising. So we just kind of rushed it through, and Leslie said, no, we're not going to worry about it. Just go. So, I don't know, maybe she likes me or something.
And do people make some kind of income from their investment?
$100 a year.
No. But do they make more back than they invested in?
That's the plan. I mean, we had to be careful about talking about an expectation of profit, but we own the system free and clear. We looked into getting loans from banks because we only built 23 kilowatts, and the law says you can go up to 75. We had the roof lease and power purchase agreements to do all of that, and it would have been pretty much pure profit at that point. Our insurance would have gone from $1,200 a year to $1,600 a year. It's nothing. Nice. You know, but we just couldn't dancing around those words, and it was getting to be spring, and the rivers were running, and I was getting sick of doing fundraising. And I went, all right, let's build what we got. We know we'll get that done by October 31st, and yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So that was some of these are board members too. And some of them really stepped up. Nice thing about a co-op is they realize it's something that you're doing as a community, so they would come and help, but not during the installation, but. What's that?
What's the Carlo Woolley in there?
Yeah, Carlo's there. He was our best salesman. He got the Unitarian Universalist Church. 6 people bought sun slices, plus the church bought one. Yeah, that's Carlo up there in the corner. He's a community-supported activist now. So he's the one organizing all the anti-coal stuff and all the anti-refinery stuff up in Anacortes. And he's been arrested twice now, so he can't get arrested again.
So
yeah, that's a good group.
So not only can we do community solar, but we can do community-supported activists as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, he sold his house to his tenants so that he could keep doing that stuff because he wasn't making enough to keep paying the mortgage. So, yeah, he's a committed dude.
Okay.
You got one more on there?
We do have one more.
That was, yeah, you don't see Silicon Energy and iTech next to each other very often. And since Silicon Energy is pretty much gone now, I can tell you that they didn't want to sell us in-state inverters to go with the iTech panels. That was right when Exocraft was out there, and it was a little scary because we got the schedule and we got to stay on it. And it's like, no, I don't want to install those inverters; they're junk. So I begged Gary. He said, I don't want my inverters running those panels. I said, nobody will ever know. I know. I lie once in a while.
Any questions?
Yeah, questions. It was almost a one-off project. It was fun. You know, a year and a half to me seemed like forever, not making any money, but a lot of people said, yeah, that's good. You got that through in a year and a half? Okay, you say so.
Nice. Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks.
Okay, I've just got a few slides. I want to go through a few things that we haven't talked about yet about the Avista project. To me, the Avista project is remarkable because it's the largest project in the state. And having 434 kW makes it almost like 1/5 of the total community power that we've done so far in the state, or something to that effect. They have 1,512 panels, 280 watts each, 1,400 cost per panel for investors. There's no sections of panels, but it's a minimum of investing $1,400. $1,800 is the return. They did it in 6 different packages. Their first one sold out in a matter of hours. And so they kept doing it and were very, very successful up there. They just did it to begin with. I've spent some time on the phone with the manager of Avista who coordinated this. They didn't originally because they just felt that their ratepayers would be interested in, a certain portion of the ratepayers would be interested. They found that people invested in this community power project for 3 different reasons. One, some people didn't want solar panels on the roof. This is easier. I mean, there's pros and cons both ways. Some people just don't want them on the roof. It's a very simple thing. 2 is because they're environmentally oriented. They're people like us, and they want to invest in it and keep solar becoming a bigger thing. And 3, because it's a good investment, because they're going to make back $400 on each panel after 5 years. So, and this sunsets exactly when the solar incentives sunset as well. Next slide. They did this project, and the group that facilitated it was the Clean Energy Collective, and this is a national organization centered out of Colorado, and they help facilitate community solar projects throughout the country, and they talk about being the largest one in the country. This is some of the locations they're doing, and for this project, what they did is they provided a package where they're doing the website, they're doing a lot of the community outreach, dealing with the customers, and actually coordinating with A&R in making it happen. Kelly, the guy I talked to who manages for Avista, said, we learned a lot in this project. And the first time through, we found that a lot of the people who wanted to get invested in it didn't know much about solar. They'd call up and want to know when we were going to put the panels on their roof. And I said, no, this is community solar. This is a different thing. And it took a lot of time to do it. And Clean Energy Collective was very helpful in that respect. And Avista said they could do this much more efficiently next time through. Clean Energy Collective is now offering their services on a la carte basis. So different utilities or whoever else wants to use them could use just aspects of it. Next slide. In their project, 90% of their clients, their investors, were residential, 10% were little mom and pop small businesses or universities, colleges and universities. Next slide. There's a real good economy of scale in this one. 1, Vista already owned the land. 2, there's good solar resources over in Spokane. 3, they're right near a power cable, so they didn't have to do new power cables for it. And it was good economy of scale, and it sold out quickly. Next slide.
So, John, we didn't learn how many people participated?
I think they sold the whole thing out, so theoretically 1,500.
Yeah. Well, but it was a maximum of 12 panels per person or entity. So I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah, don't know, but a lot. They felt like they could sell more if they were going to do more. They said if the incentives were there again, they'd do it in a minute. They're right on it. So next slide. Tom. And now Tom Bulgerson is going to talk about Tacoma City Lights. Example. You're having voice problems? Okay, I can do this one. Yeah, no problem. Okay, Tacoma City Light is probably the 2nd biggest community solar project in our state, and it's really new. They've just sold the 4th package of it, I believe, in the last month or so. Bruce Carter, who spoke to our meetings in the past, now works for them, and he's the project manager for it. And I think Tacoma City Light did a fantastic job with it. Next slide. So this is the picture. It's right on their building, right in Tacoma, I believe, right next to I-5, very close to it. And it's just, they started out with one. The politics of Tacoma City Light is the executive director wasn't very excited about it. He isn't a big a fan of solar and wind power and things like that. He really likes his hydropower. But staff were really in favor of it, and the Tacoma City Light strongly favored it. City Council, this Tacoma City Council was strongly favored. So he was kind of boxed in. And Bruce has great stories about how they convinced him to go forward, especially with the fourth one. Next slide. And now we're going to do a quick little YouTube on this one. I at least found entertaining.
And rental housing just don't have the ability to put solar on their roof.
For these reasons, Tacoma Power customers now have the opportunity to invest in solar power technologies through the Community Solar Project.
We are offering what we call solar units, which are very small portions of an overall community solar project. If you can think about a community solar project very similar to a community garden, the community garden may be a couple of acres in size, but your portion of it is actually only, maybe a 2 foot by 2 foot square, and everything that you can get out of that 2 foot by 2 foot square is yours. Okay, with a community solar project, your solar unit may be a very small portion of that, but you get everything that it generates. In this instance, it's about a 28.5 watt solar unit that generates kilowatt hours during the year. That enables you to get access to that state production incentive plus the about 4 cents or so that we will pay you also for that kilowatt hour generation during the year. We measure that once a year, and then we give you a check in August for the cumulative total that's produced during the year.
The large, flat roof of the power warehouse at Tacoma Public Utilities provides an ideal location to house this solar project.
We're moving about 1,000 solar panels up onto the roof, as well as ballast block, which will keep everything secure on top of the roof. Routing all of our electrical lines down to a room below, which has about 40 inverters, which convert the electricity from DC at the rooftop to AC, which the building can utilize.
Due to high interest, the project has grown to 4 systems being installed that will cover almost the entire roof. The hope is to have enough solar units for everyone in the service area that would like to participate.
When we originally thought about doing this, we were just going to put up one system, one 75 kilowatt system. These are 280 watt solar modules. So you can do the math basically on that to figure out how many modules that you would need. But when we introduced this to our customers, the demand was just overwhelming. And so we went from one 75 kW system to 2 75 kW systems to eventually 3 75 kW systems. And as of this week, we've added a 4th one.
Even with the fickle Pacific Northwest weather, this project will be an efficient source of energy thanks to the long summer days.
The system on the roof in our Northwest environment, we expect to produce somewhere on the order of 300 megawatt hours of electricity a year. What that means to us, that could power 30 to 60 homes for a year. It could drive 100 electric cars, 12,000 miles a year.
Once the project is complete, participants will be able to see in real time how much electricity the solar project produces at different times of the year, presenting results from a project that's putting the sun to work, producing clean energy that participants can feel good about.
What are you going to do? Cool. That's good. You cut that one out. Go on to the next slide.
ទូរទស្សនិកជនក្រសួងកសិកម្មរុក្ខាប្រមាញ់និងនេសាទបានគាំទ្រដល់ជនជាតិអាមេរិក2នាក់ដែលនាំយកបច្ចេកវិទ្យាចង្ក្រានព្រះអាទិត្យមកបង្ហាញដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋកម្ពុជាចង្ក្រាននេះទាញថាមពលព្រះអាទិត្យសម្រាប់ចម្អិនអាហារឆ្អិនបានល្អកាត់បន្ថយការភាយ
We're still in Tacoma. What I found one of the interesting things about this project is they're selling it in $200 increments, I believe. And so that made it much more affordable for low-income people. I asked Bruce if they had any investment from low and moderate-income people, and he said in the town of Roy outside Tacoma, which is part of their service area, they had someone call in from there and said, well, we don't have any internet service. How can we sign up? And said, oh, just come into our customer station, our office, and we'll take care of you. So this elder couple came in. that they had one particular credit card and they'd made sure they had enough credits on it so they could invest in a number of different of the panels, and that this was a really big thing for them to be able to partake in and invest in it. I thought that was a really good thing. Chris?
So we actually have a customer of this program here.
Excellent.
My friend Chrissy Cooley, who's on the Sustainable Development Commission and a very active member of the ILFI Collaborative down south. I work with her a lot in Sonoma, and she's a customer. So you want to talk to them about her experience?
Would you like to come up and tell us a couple minutes of your experience? You got to.
Yeah, I am. I brought her.
Sorry, way back here. I'm gonna have to use the mic.
Yeah, come use the mic.
I'm gonna get you, Chris. Yeah, so I chair the Sustainable Tacoma Commission, and I would echo that Bill Gaines, the head of Tacoma Power, was not supportive of this project. So one reason I really like the Tacoma project is that it really was community-based, that our city council was pushing for it, and the Sustainable Tacoma Commission, a volunteer citizen commission, is the ones who are really pushing the city council to push TPU to do it. I own 4 panels. They were $100 a piece, and this, sorry, not panels, units. I really want to thank the panelists tonight. I've learned so much. Like, I always wondered why they were doing 4 75 kW systems, and now I know. So thank you for enlightening me. Yeah, this has just been a really fun project. I'm 2 months in being a customer. I would have purchased more. And I also want to just close by saying we could have another community solar project in Tacoma. They limited this to 20 units and they sold out. We could keep going, and we're on 4 systems now. So yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Jeremy, could you come up and Puget Sound Solar, Jeremy and Pam's company are the ones that did the installation on this project, and I'd like to hear whatever you have to say about it.
Well, we were just glad to see Tacoma do this because they are a long utility, means they're long on power. They have more hydropower than they need. So, and really Tacoma has lagged behind the rest of the state in terms of net metered customers. They don't have very many. So it was great to see this go forth because there was a lot of interest in it, and you know, among Tacoma customers. And of course they're able to take advantage of the big incentive, the $1.80 a kilowatt hour. So I think the numbers made it palatable to the folks that really didn't seem to be that interested in it. But in general, Tacoma is hopefully going to move forward with more solar. But it's tough when utilities are making those decisions. It's better when the customers are making the decisions. That's why it's great, that we have so many customer-owned utilities in this state. If you are a utility customer and you want to see more solar, and your utility is a public utility district or a municipal utility, you can have your say. You can go to the city council meeting. You can talk to your city council people. You can talk to the mayor. You can try to move policy in that direction. So that's all I want to say about Tacoma. We're just glad to see them do something.
Great, thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So a question about that, people that buy into that at $100 a unit, is that like forever then?
No, it's only a 4-year program.
Okay.
They make break-even point is after 3 years. And at the end of 4 years, they estimate the value of the electricity it's going to produce for the next 20 years, and they give you a check for that at the last check.
Okay.
So pretty good, different than a way Avista did it. It was a good thing, I think. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Approximate annual payment. 3340, so 3340 times 5 would it, so you're making actually a really incredible return in 4 years.
He said 12%.
12% return on an annual basis?
Yeah, he said it was a 12% annual return.
Excellent. Next one. Very good. Next one.
Okay.
John, just as a FYI, Tacoma and Vista were slower to get going, so they're nowhere near the production cap limit. Part of the, I think, reason that people are going to earn more in these community solar projects is unlike PSC customers, Seattle City Light customers, we're hitting the lid now.
Okay.
On the production setup, so people are going to see a decrease in what they're going to earn.
Good point.
And whereas with the Vista and Tacoma, they were slower to get going, so they haven't maxed it. They're nowhere near the lid.
Too bad we can't borrow some of their lid up here.
Yeah, we can. I'm Tom Balderston, and excuse my voice when we use the mic. Let's see, I want to just point out Bruce Carter said that was interesting to me. He said that the first offering was on February 28th of this year through, I think, an internet sale. And the first 75 kilowatts sold out in less than 5 minutes. The second one sold out 2 hours, which was what they were originally planning to do. They decided to do the third one, and that sold in a couple of weeks, I think. And then the fourth one, which was the one they talked the director into doing, at the end went sold out like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think. So it was a couple of months, but you know, the excitement was really there for them. I wanted to. This is kind of the nod to old friends and history. It's great to connect with people and to see Joe again, and I got a chance to talk on the phone with. I'm a volunteer for the committee, so I'm not a solar expert. But John and I agreed to research some of this. He's got a nice chance to talk to Bruce Carter. I haven't talked to him for years. He's been around doing this stuff for since the 80s. He said he bought a blower door in 1985. And then I had a couple of nice long calls with Gary Neistat from the city of Ellensburg, who is an old friend from Energy Star Homes. Gary was ready to drive over here for this tonight, but he just said it didn't work out. He's no longer at the city. He's in City of Yakima. But we want to give a nod to the City of Ellensburg project, which was, I think Forbes is arguably the first community solar project to go online in the country. Arguably, I think means that nobody could find another one. This started at 25 kilowatt. City of Ellensburg has a small city utility. Gary and I think the director at the time were right for doing this, and they decided to build a system and sell shares to their customers. It was structured as a utility model. It is now at 111 kilowatt, and they originally did 17 kilowatts of small wind. I think they basically bought 5 or 6 different experimental windmills, and all of them are gone now. He said that one of them threw a blade, and the city attorney said, "We're not having that because, it's next to I-90. Wind blade can fly out into the interstate." The interesting thing about Ellensburg, these talking about the demand, is the people that bought into this we're making a very poor return on their investment. This was 2006, and this whole price drop in solar had not happened yet. So they paid, they're paying a pretty high price for the panels, and there wasn't a community solar incentive, I don't think, on this. So people bought 3% of the system, got 3% credit on their bill for this. So it was really a pioneering project, and after it happened, Gary had people calling him from all over the country and got a lot of attention. I think they're now, the utility isn't excited about continuing, so they're trying to buy it back from the original customers now. Anyway, great project. Next slide. And some of the people that have done this, I think you've got to give a shout to Mike Nelson, who, if you are new to this is the guy, not so much community solar, because I know community solar wasn't in the original bill that he crafted, but who worked for WSU, but for probably 10 years before this started happening, was tirelessly, you'd see Mike speak, you'd hear he's speaking in Chilean, and then I see him at the solar conference in Portland with his trailer, with the website that was run by Solar Power. And at a time when people thought this was just really expensive stuff that nobody's going to want, I think he was tirelessly advocating for it, helped get the bill passed, I think, originally for the solar incentive. And Mike was always used to talk about pocket calculator magic. He wanted to get the people with the money to go ahead and blow their money on this stuff and get it to the point where we could all afford it. And then on the left is just a picture of, I think, the Ellsworth project that was heavily involved with Central Washington University people, with Mike, with Woodinville Environmental Foundation, a whole bunch of players. And Gary is hard to see, but he's pictured. He's the tall guy on the left of that group. So then I investigated a couple of quick ones, and I'll wrap up with this, and I think then go to questions, because I don't have any earth-shaking conclusions for you. I think we'll have the questions being the conclusion. I think there's one more before this. A friend of mine who lives in Maryland was part of this small project that I found on the internet. 22 kilowatt is an LLC model. It's just a group of people that got together. They formed the LLC. They put the system on the church. They created the different legal agreements, the power purchase agreement with the church, the agreement for the LLC, and the net metering agreement with the utility. And it was about an 8% return, and 22 kilowatt system. This basically makes the church net zero, and then the owners get a check for the balance that's sold back to the grid. But it's a neat little project. And was done kind of privately, on a private basis. Next slide. And then the last one, I thought Reeves might know more, but Ashland, Oregon has a fantastic solar policy and city solar incentives, all kinds of rules promoting solar and promoting social equity with solar. That didn't print very well, I'm sorry, but it looks like they got this down to $500 for the price of a full panel. So it's a couple of dollars a watt. Oregon State has solar incentives too. And the neat thing here is that they created a zero interest loan, so you could buy in for $8. $8.94 a month. Sorry, that $8.94 relates to the figure above it. You could buy in a zero interest loan to own the system for $8.94 a month to own a share of it. So that was a pretty cool system. And I think that's my last one.
Okay.
Oh yeah, one other one. John and I looked about what are these national groups that you can buy into solar. Eloa, turns out they're just going out of business. Mosaic is a group that does solar loans. They aggregate solar loans, and we're selling loans to investors. Now, right at the moment, they're just doing loans. They're not selling offerings to investors. So they said they might again. So we couldn't find very much at all that you can do right now nationally. There's this one company called Sunport that makes a little gadget that you can plug your device into, and it communicates to an app, and it buys SRECs, or solar renewable energy certificates, for the power you use as you use it. So yeah, that's kind of cool. You can offset your power for your cell phone.
Thanks, Tom. And then one other example of a national thing is a company called Cloud Solar. I saw a little fundraiser for it, and I saw it on the net. And they're a group of MIT engineers who graduated, and they decided to form a solar company. And they're picking out where's the most desirable place to do solar farms in the country based on where's the best sun, the most expensive power, and the best incentives. They started out in New England, and they've done one buy-in. You can be anywhere in the country to buy and invest into their farms, unlike our local community solar. And they're just building their first one. Their next one's going to be, I believe, in California. And you can sign up for their website if you're interested in finding out more information on it. It's an interesting little possibility. It's looking for something that we could get into immediately if we're so inclined. Next slide.
And so that's our last slide. If somebody could turn the lights on, please. If you can figure out how to do that. We'll take a few questions and then we'll wrap up. George.
So can you guys explain the money mechanics of this magic box? We give you $1,800 for a sun slice, and then we get checks for $100 once a year. What happens to the money in between those two events?
Are you talking about community solar like the Avista project?
They all make money, but it's like, how do they do that?
No, they don't all make money. A lot of the City of Seattle ones are set up not to.
Yeah, and some of the Oregon ones, Solar Pioneer 2 has never been fully subscribed. But I think mainly that money is just going to pay for the construction and the transaction cost, the legal cost of getting that set up. The payment that comes, annually after that is through the power purchase agreement or the avoided cost of the electricity plus the incentive.
And so who funds the incentive? The state budget?
In Washington, the state.
Well, it's a utility tax credit.
Yeah.
So it's basically a ratepayer's money.
The utility gives you the check, but doesn't really.
It costs us, I looked at the number on our, like a PSC billing rate, it's really a tiny amount. It pays for the solar incentive program. It's like less than a tenth of a penny.
Per kilowatt.
Per kilowatt, yeah, it's a very small cost.
Yeah, and the study that they did that showed how much money is coming back into the state with payroll taxes and excise taxes and all of that crap. I mean, that dwarfs anything else. It's like $6.
It's a good investment. We need more.
It's got to come from somewhere. I just don't know where.
It does. It comes from us. Other questions?
Which is something that a lot of people will vocalize and they resent. They don't like the idea that they're paying into a program that is going to pay other people for doing solar.
They should get free stuff.
Do you understand that, folks? You hear that? It's like somehow you're not going to, benefit from clean air or lower challenges to the climate, which is really wacko when you think about what it really means to be part of a society. We really saw when you look at the East Coast, all those states that are so invested now. We went to the conference in the East, the Intersolar conference, and those utility guys from New Jersey and New York, this is 2 years after Sandy, were still shaking in their boots at the experience they had with that horrible storm, hitting them, damaging the utility grid, hurting their customers, destroying infrastructure. They're going to think about, in New Jersey, they have put a solar panel on every light pole. They're going to think about ways to come up with creative strategies for making renewables work because they have lived in the eye of the storm. And it's really sad to think that that's how far we all have to go before we can take action.
Yeah, well, you look at the alternatives, oil trains and coal trains. That's what we're fighting right now, and it's all part of this whole picture. They're trying to maintain the status quo, and we're trying to push them kicking and screaming into the future. Pushing dirt up a hill, we are. But it's working.
I wanted to have an opinion from you guys on incentives because I've felt for a long time that you have incentives. We have the RF funds for energy efficiency, and then they stop. And you have one of the solar manufacturers. The incentive was designed to create some jobs and permanent jobs in Washington. You had this great incentive, and you had solar manufacturers flourishing, and then you added and then one of them went out of business. When in fact they were a company before the incentive, they were a growing company. So.
Well, they were the only one in the state growing so fast.
I mean, before the incentive happened, though, you have businesses, and then you have an incentive, and they grow, and then you end the incentive, and they go out of business. This happened with Brothers Asian too. Anyway, I just want to get your comment on that, and how can you design these incentives?
Well, I think policy is really hard to create. I should speak because others push this as far as having a local manufacturer getting a higher incentive. It seemed like a great idea, but yeah, as of now, we have a choice of one, and like you said, they're highly dependent on them having an advantageous rate. So I think personally, in retrospect, that was probably not the best choice. But how the hell would we have known back then? I don't think we would have. I mean, it seemed like a good idea, but were we flooded with manufacturers? No.
We have a few that we're looking into it.
Yeah.
Pure Solar is 60 days from listing.
Bill?
If you think about something like Solyndra, which was an excellent idea when they were
Great
working on
technology.
it, and it took 5 years to get that company up and running because it was highly dependent on the fact that the silicon was so expensive. And this was a system that was going to use far less silicon.
Yeah.
So it brought the cost way down. But meanwhile, China comes in and made them eat their lunch. Now, Solyndra happens to be, you don't know this, on the building down at the sports city. It's the most, last I heard from City Light, it's still the most productive solar system in the city. And we couldn't put it on residential because it's only made for large, like the Homer building. Now, that was just something that, it was an idea at its time. We saw it on the solar floor, on the conferences. It was a great idea. It was going to meet the market demand, but all of a sudden the silicon becomes so much cheaper.
And it wasn't a badly run company either. It was just crushed by market forces.
To answer your question though about policies, I don't know that anyone knows a great policy yet. So there's a terrific keynote by Green Tech Media. It was at a conference just earlier this year, and the entire keynote is about how poorly designed solar policy is. And it's the same boom bust cycle. Germany's seen it, Japan has seen it, Spain saw it, Italy saw it, Hawaii has seen it. And you have this problem where you're starting to create this infrastructure, and then it disappears, it evaporates. People struggling trying to find a business model to keep it going. You end up stranding a lot of these technologies out there when no one knows how to maintain it.
I would love to continue on this conversation for another couple of days, but I think we've gone along enough. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and our next meeting is going to be a very exciting one. That's going to be the indoor-outdoor meeting, and very interactive. And thank you in coming in, and hopefully we can all we'll have a miracle in the next election, and the legislature will change, and we'll get a bill at least as good as Oregon's for solar power and for solar incentives. You have one more thing?
I just wanted to say thanks for listening about the Underwrite a Gem campaign. I forgot to mention that I have some brochures for those who are interested in being an underwriter or a fundraiser. Let me know, I'll give you one.
Thanks very much.